Welcome back to Newsday. Well, there's 8 of them, the crossbenchers that don't have an affiliation to the Greens, that is. And the Prime Minister, if Labor and the Greens oppose his legislation, needs 6 of them to get anything done. One of them is Senator David Leyonhjelm, New South Wales Senator, and he joins me now. Thanks for your company.
Good.
All right, let's start by talking about wind farms. You wrote about this in The Australian yesterday. The Prime Minister has made some comments about them today, that they're unsightly and that they're loud and noisy. What's your concern with them? What, that they just don't work in terms of energy?
No. That's an issue. Subsidising anything is against my philosophy, Libertarian philosophy, Liberal Democrats. But no, the main issue, I set up a select committee, a Senate Select Committee, to examine governance and regulation of wind farms. And what we've discovered is a litany of disregard for rules and laws and so forth. But what we also discovered is there's an amazing number of people who are being made sick. Including people who welcomed renewable energy, welcomed wind farms, took them onto their property and are being paid.
Why are they getting sick?
Yeah, the best information we have at the moment is that it's infrasound, which is very low frequency sound. The Prime Minister talking about audible noise, he's probably not talking about the source of the problem. It's probably inaudible noise, or if it is audible, it's only audible at very low levels and not to everyone. There seems to be some sort of individual variability. Some people are made sick and some aren't. It's a bit like motion sickness, we think. It's probably something related to the middle and inner ear. And the problem is that because it's renewable energy, it's green, everybody's all,
so this side of it just gets ignored?
It's just being, well, not only that, the people who are being made sick are being told, you're not sick, it's all in your head, it's just you're making it up.
And you become an anti-environmentalist, I'm guessing, at the same time. Now, let's move on to another issue. I want to ask you, as a Libertarian, same hat, if you can wear it, you don't really take it off. I want to ask you about the citizenship laws that are being talked about. What do you think of that? I mean, surely a Libertarian can't like it almost no matter what somebody that might be a dual national does.
Well, there's an issue, a philosophical issue there. Where do your rights come from? Do they come from the government? In which case your citizenship is terribly important.
Greg Craven wrote about this.
Exactly.
He says that citizenship is the fundamental one.
Yeah.
You agree with that?
No, I don't. That's based on, I divide the two sort of broad philosophies into Hobbes versus Locke. Hobbes says without the government there's war, permanent war, and the only rights you have are those granted by the government. I disagree. Locke says you have inherent rights, whether you call them natural rights, God-given rights, however they come to you, they're inherent.
And too often politicians put too many things into that category, I would argue. Listen, I'm not going to let you talk about Hobbes and Locke. As much as I would love that, I don't see too many politicians doing it. The reason I'm not going to is because I know what you do want to talk about before we run out of time, and that is tax and the fact that both sides of politics have welched it when it comes to the issue of raising the tax-free threshold. Now, that's a broken promise on both fronts, isn't it?
I don't know about broken promises. I don't keep track. There's so many of them. It's personally extremely annoying because when the carbon tax repeal bills were going through, there was a bundle of 8 of them. And one of the bills was a reversal of a tax cut that was introduced by Labor as compensation for the carbon tax. It was an increase in the tax-free threshold, not by very much. And so in my first week in the Senate, I barely knew how to get from the Senate back to my office and vice versa. I had to figure out...
You always go via the Sky News office, but very close.
Yes. I had to learn about procedure and everything. I split off that one bill from the others. They were all being voted on as one. I split that one off so it was voted separately. I convinced Senator Bob Day, to come with me and cross the floor. We crossed the floor and it got voted down. So the effect of it was that we kept that tax cut. It wasn't very much. It averages about $80 a year for people up to about $80,000
Now they've dudded you anyway.
They've dudded me. They've done a dirty little deal.
So what's that going to mean for you going forward when you look at government legislation?
Well, it's a plague on both their houses almost. I mean, I'm cranky with the government, but I've got no reason to love Labor any better.
But I guess my question though is, you've always been a bit of a purist on this. Others, Jackie Lambie and others have talked about, Glenn Lazarus has done it as well, you know, you only get my vote if, and they've done these sort of things. You've always been more of an ideological purist, so has Bob Day. Is that something that you might become more pragmatic about as a result of what has happened to you on this issue?
I think I'm likely to become even more purist. In spite of that term, In Canberra, it's funny that I am called a purist because the purist libertarians in my party say I'm not purist at all. I'm very pragmatic. I think I'm
all
going to...
relative.
Yeah, it is all relative because everything in Canberra is a compromise. I think I'm going to be less pragmatic and more purist. I don't think I'm going to cut the government as much slack as I did. The records shows that was published in a newspaper recently that I voted with the government 70% of the time. It might not be as high as that in future.
Because you're going to be more purist.
I'm going to be more purist.
Before we run out of time, something that our viewers might not know about you, Senator David Leyonhjelm. This is his helmet, not mine. There we are, I'll put it in my screen. You, as a Libertarian, would never break the speed limit in that pretty high-powered vehicle that I often see roll up to Australian Agenda on a Sunday morning, would you? Strong observer of the rules?
Not that I'd ever admit to it, but the fact is that probably 70 or 80% of people do break the speed limit, and I have an issue with that. If the law says one thing and 70 or 80% of the people don't obey it, who's wrong? The law or the people?
Well, it sounds like you're talking about gay marriage if we ever had a plebiscite on it. All right, we're out of time though. I'd love to ask you about that, but we'll do that on another occasion. Senator David Leyonhjelm, thanks for your company. Appreciate it.